Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deep Dive podcast. My name is Sanya and I will be your host, and today we will talk a lot about online shopping, consumer behavior, and beyond. Consumer journeys in today's ever-changing, touchpoint-rich digital landscape can be overwhelming for clients. A brand should be easily accessible, not only through search engine platforms, but also through social media channels, which are today also used as search engines by Gen Z. In an e-commerce environment, products must be relevant for the main search keywords. They must be competitive and effectively presented on the PDP and PLP. However, they must also emotionally anchor and find a place in the consumer's daily life or special occasions while remaining present and competitive in the rapidly expanding retail media landscape. This seems like a lot, right? Fortunately, today we have Zlatko Popovic, the Global e-commerce commercial manager at Barilla, who will share their brilliant cross-funnel success story with Melina Bianco, and Mila Milosavljevic, the digital research specialist at IC, who will explain how behavioral research insights can help you navigate this landscape and build a clever and adaptive strategy. Welcome, Mila, and welcome, Zlatko.
Thank you, Sanya. Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us today.
So as always, before delving into a topic, we want to make sure that the coast is clear and that any unnecessary noise in the form of myths have been debunked. That's why we will begin by asking Mila a few questions, the answers to which will ease us into a deeper dive later with the proper mindset. So Mila, for CPG products, generic content on e-commerce will do the work. True or not true?
Everyone who has an established product line in a brick and mortar store understands how difficult it is to introduce new things to shoppers. About 30,000 new products are launched every year and more than 80% of them fail. And when we're talking about new product launch, it can be anything from like new flavor of drink to maybe green, eco-friendly version of some bestseller that we already know. And when launching a product, manufacturers usually focus in-store. They design eye-catching displays, shelf standouts, banners, end caps, obviously in order to engage potential shoppers. But when it comes to e-commerce, product presentation is typically limited to just fitting into the existing template of the retailer's pages. And they usually rely on some generic description of the product. And it doesn't have to be that way, because the e-commerce environment, and particularly the product detail page on a retailer's website, truly offer room to promote engaging, high-quality content, useful content about the product. And IC has a number of solutions to track the effectiveness of the client's product in the online store, including but not limited to hero image testing, A+ content creation, product claim testing, and similar. And I can only say that these solutions have consistently helped us and our clients to understand how to make the most of that out of that PDP space and how to fine-tune product content to ensure accurate and consistent presentation across all channels.
Thanks, Mila. And myth number 2. The final purchase is the most important KPI that e-commerce experts should use to measure and analyze conversion rates.
Obviously, there's no doubt that the most relevant indicator of success and conversion for any e-commerce business is the percentage of customers who completed the purchase. But there's also a number of equally significant factors that may affect the conversion on the retailer's website. And some of those factors relate to retailer's design of the retailer's website. So its architecture and basically its user friendliness. And other factors have more to do with how the product is marketed and displayed on the retailer's website. From our vast experience with e-commerce studies, a confusingly structured menu or poorly optimized search function, which, for example, doesn't tolerate typos or maybe displays out-of-stock scenarios without offering an alternative, can make or break customers' decision to make a purchase on that website. Furthermore, you can have a poor quality product image that obscures important data like flavor or package size, Or on the other hand, you can have excessively long product description that includes irrelevant information, and that can also discourage consumers from making a purchase. And because of all of this, I would say that manufacturers should think about keeping an eye on additional KPIs that offer a more comprehensive picture and explain why customers make certain decisions, why they browse websites in a certain way, why they abandon their carts, and so on. And this knowledge could assist them in enhancing the entire shopping experience, either by modifying the way their products are advertised on the retailer's website, or by optimizing the overall layout and the design of the website, which is the case when we're talking about the website that is owned by the brand or by the client.
Cool. And myth number 3, ads and banners in e-commerce websites are not valuable unless they're clicked on.
Yeah, so IC has conducted a behavioral study that begs to differ from this misconception. The study that we conducted was aiming to understand what is the impact of the retailer's banner or ads on shopping behavior overall, browsing patterns, purchase decisions, and so on. And it turned out that very small fraction of people ended up clicking on the ad itself. It was like 2%. But did that mean that it was not worth placing an ad on the product list page? Well, no. In fact, just seeing the banner at the top of the product list had positive impact on shoppers' behavior on a couple of metrics. First of all, those product lists that had banner or ad were browsed 20% longer. Consequently, shoppers saw 10% more items on the list when ad was present, and that resulted in increased purchase intent for 14%. So we can conclude that the way that ads influence the shoppers is that they basically subconsciously drive interest in the advertised product, which that gets purchased in its primary position, which is product list.
That's very interesting. Seems like the e-commerce ads are the silent heroes of the day. Thank you, Mila. Thank you. This was very awesome. Now we're moving to deep dive questions for Zlatko. So Zlatko, tell us more about the recent buzz surrounding retail media. What new features do they bring to the digital consumer journey that are particularly interesting for CPG product promotion?
Thank you for asking me that question. It's funny because I've been asked this question quite a few times, not just by agencies, but also by colleagues. Because what is happening now is that all the marketing people are trying to diversify our marketing investments, right? And retail media is becoming one of those, stocks that everyone wants to jump in. And I see at this moment lots of confusion, but at the same time, huge opportunities around retail media. So to be very straight to the point, what I think retail media is currently doing that few touch points can do is bring all the parts of the funnel in one place. And that makes the brands and the marketeers very happy for one simple reason. It's easier to do everything in one place, and it's also easy to measure. That is because you can create brand equity, you can generate awareness in the exact same place where someone is buying your product. So the funnel becomes much smaller, and it's easy for you to jump from one part of the funnel to the other one. That is the key, that everything else becomes part of the story, but the key story is everything is in one place. The shoppers are there, consumers are there, and you can target them in a much easier way. There's lots of benefits behind. The first thing is the data that you get from retail media becomes crucial, not only for the retailers, but especially for the brands. So that means that the relationship between the brand and the retailer becomes a key factor as well. Now, what is happening, however, is using this data that come from retail media usually proves to be very difficult, not because it's difficult to manage the data, but because there's lots of data and organizations, CPG companies might not be structured in a way that allows them to do so. So the opportunity is big. I completely agree with that. But I do think that at the same time, we need to embrace the change because retail media does require change. And most of the companies at the moment are trying to embrace that, but we're kind of blind. We don't know where it's going. We don't know how big it will be. Is it something that, might be not as long-term as we think? No one has the answer, but what it shows is that right now it's working and it needs to be embraced by the brand, and something needs to change in the organizations to make the best use of it.
Yeah, and it's a lot to take in a way, but what are some of the shortcomings of retail media that you saw perhaps, and is there a way to mitigate them by using alternative touch points like social media to complement them?
Well, first thing is, as I said before, data governance. So you need to have a strong understanding of how to manage data, how to build on data, and how to use those data. The second thing is related, I also would say, in terms of the relationship between the brand and the retailers. Because what is happening with retail media, of course, is that the retailers are getting power by owning the bigger chunk of the funnel, right? In the past, we were thinking about the retailer as the point of purchase. So we would assume that, what happens in the retailer environment is conversion. I remember having conversations in the past where I was trying to generate awareness in store, and I would have some colleagues telling me I don't generate awareness in the stores, I generate awareness somewhere else. But now the retail media is proving them wrong. And now everyone is agreeing on the fact, okay, it's all happening in one place. But at the same time, that's not the only touch point, and you need a balance. And some things are not possible through retail media, and traditional touch points will still remain crucial. I have an example. I have a very good example from a couple of retailers I used to work with. We are a pasta company, as you know, and we provide a meal solution. We don't just sell pasta; we make also the sauces. So our proposal is a meal solution, not just two products, not just ingredients, but a whole meal. So what happens is that, of course, one of our key strategies is inspiring through recipes. Makes a lot of sense. We want to trigger the journey by telling you this is a carbonara, this is arrabbiata, and from that trigger, you will consider the ingredients, and that's when we come in. But the thing is, if you think about retailers, there's some retailers that are perceived more premium versus others, which is completely fine. Every retailer has a different proposition. But when it comes to inspiring, some retailers might be more appealing to inspire because they have that premium proposition, but some other might not be a place where people look for inspiration. They might just be a place where they try to get to the cart as soon as they can. And every retailer is part of a different group. Some of them inspire shoppers. Some of them, are very considered because of their efficiency, for example. But I really doubt you're gonna go on certain retailers and scroll for minutes on their ingredients page to see how do I make pasta, because you're most likely probably to go on Instagram for inspiration, right? So we know we can inspire through retail media, but at the same time, we have to be realistic to which degree we can do that. But that doesn't mean we should take the money from one bucket to another. It means we need to optimize all the buckets, because every retailer has a media network that works in a certain way that targets a certain shopper. So that is very important. If we don't understand that, we risk of moving money from one bucket to the other where that doesn't make much sense. So I do see lots of investment decisions that needs to be made after the rise of retail media. And we need to make lots of assumptions and data analysis before making certain investment decisions, both on a local or a global level. That these for me are the two big opportunities and threats, because of course, if you don't take the opportunity, it will become a threat at some point because your competitors have taken the opportunity before you.
I will briefly jump in when we're talking about social media. We're witnessing that over the last few years, social media platforms have become centralized places for both entertainment and shopping, especially with the rise of social commerce. And as Zlatko also mentioned, consumers do rely on those channels as well to interact with brand content, to become familiar with brands. And according to our most recent TikTok study, we also saw that nearly 70% of users found the brand's advertisements pleasant, which suggests that this whole promoted material is well accepted. by viewers. And furthermore, we also learned that ads that have potential to elicit positive emotional response from viewers enhance the overall perception of the brand and its uniqueness. So taking all that into account, I would say that we for sure shouldn't overlook the role of social media in this whole process.
To go back to Zlatko, could you please tell us about the Mulino Bianco gift package and its successful cross-funnel strategy?
Yes, that's one of my favorite projects. It started back in 2018. So what was happening is that we started selling our products online on one of the most famous pew players in the country. I'm talking about Italy. This is an Italian specific example where Mulino Bianco is a huge brand, is loved by all the Italians. I personally love Mulino Bianco. Since I was a kid, I started eating their product. So it's a brand that people love and it's well known, just to be very clear in the context of the brand. So what happened is when we started selling online, we needed a different proposition for certain players, right? If you think about Amazon, for example, it was very difficult for us to find a good strategy to sell a product that retails for 1, 2, 3 euros. So we needed something different, but we didn't really know how to change that because we are a massive company. And when we do things in the company, we're always talking about tons, right? Because we always call us a huge elephant because every big CPG is like that. It takes time to do one step. But these kind of projects require agility, require a different mindset. So what we needed is a small unit that could work cross-function. And as you said, we needed also a unit that would do a cross-funnel activation because everything was supposed to be built from scratch, from awareness to conversion, because there was nothing, it was a new product. So what we decided to do, we needed an insight on what could we sell. And we didn't have much budget because, of course, we were not talking about tons. So how do you create something with a small budget that actually works? So we started by reading the reviews on our products. That was for free. You don't need to pay for the reviews, right? They're public. Everyone can access them. And when we were looking at the reviews on our products, on our Mulino Bianco and Pan di Stelle products, we would always see people asking for the gadgets they would get in store to be available online. They were asking how I wish I could have won that competition last year so I could get the teddy bear and so on. So we started to think and we said, let's gather all these comments. Let's see what they're actually asking for. And they really, really loved all the Pan di Stelle branded gadgets. So we said that actually works. What we can do is we don't have to invent anything new because it's already part of our organization giving gifts to people every time, they buy our products. There's always a way of winning some gadgets or items with that. So we decided to take some of that production and create a gift box that was supposed to cover, at the beginning, it was only one occasion during the year, but it was so successful, then we kept covering different occasions during the year. So covering Christmas, Easter, St. Valentine's Day. So there was always a moment for us to cover with a gift. When that happened, we launched a product. We were very skeptical because we didn't even know the forecast. It was difficult for us to do a proper forecast because it was the first time. So there was lots of intuition and data that we would find publicly through comments, reviews that we would use for this project. But when that happened, the project was huge because we were using both the strong power that the brand has across the whole country. So we did launch the product while we had an ATL communication going on TV. We had huge campaigns. They were not specifically sponsoring the product we would sell at that moment, but they would sponsor the brand. And the product was part of the brand communication. It was the way the brand was covering the e-comm channel, which at the time was perceived as a conversion-driven channel where people buy. But that was the first time where we actually realized, wait a minute, we're inspiring people because now we see that there's something happening in store after this launch. People have more gadgets that have our logo on it and they're bringing those gadgets home. So that is creating something, that is doing something not just from a conversion perspective, it's going all around the funnel. So when that happened, of course, that first project, everyone was starting to consider that project not as an e-com activity, but as a pure marketing activity. And that's what all the different teams started saying, that sounds a very interesting project you did with this brand. Shall we do it with my brand? And that's where all the different brand teams started planning in their yearly plans something specifically dedicated to e-com that fits the marketplace proposition.
Well, that's such an amazing example, and also it seems that when an idea is good enough, it kind of surpasses the boundaries between funnel stages and kind of outgrows them. Mila, what are your thoughts on this particular campaign?
Yeah, I think that this story perfectly sums up the significance of omnichannel marketing. And I think we can all agree how critical it is that to ensure that consumers have consistent experience with the brand, wherever they are, visit an online store, brick and mortar, social media. And as you mentioned, Sanya, at the beginning, in today's digital world, there's so many touch points where customers can interact with the brand and the product. And I, as a researcher, can only attest that there is very high significance to have tools that will manage, to capture all those touch points and the entire experience. And at the top of my mind, I'm thinking about passive tracking. I mean, this is a great example as one of the tools that you can have. It's a great addition to our existing behavioral solutions. And basically, it's a first step towards obtaining the comprehensive picture, especially in that beginning of the funnel, like how people inform, how they start to engage with the brand and its story in order to capture the whole customer journey.
Yeah, and Mila, like you mentioned, research. Again, this is a great segue for my next question for Zlatko. This was obviously a bit more agile and but still based on an insight. So when you're thinking about a complex strategy like this one, or maybe another one across the Barilla brand, so what is the role of the consumer behavior research and insights in the decision-making process? How do you approach it? How valuable is it to you?
Well, very good question. So as you said at the beginning, I'm a commercial guy, right? So I work in the commercial area. So let me just take a step back because I really want to make a point that I think it's extremely relevant to your question. I was in a meeting with a customer a couple of years ago, and we were trying to find an agreement on a specific issue that we had. And then the customer said one of the things that, when I say customer, I mean retailer, just to be clear. One of the key, I would say that was probably a key point in my career. I remember the retailer told me, listen, we need to find a solution that makes all three of us in the room happy. And I looked at him and I was like, well, it's just the two of us. Who's the third one? And he said, the shopper. He's always in the room. They're always in the room. And at that point, I started thinking, whenever we do what we do with our customers, with our retailers, we always need to think about the shoppers and the consumers, right? But retailers and brands are very focused on specific parts of the business, especially specific departments of the retailer industry and the brand. So what we do to speak the same language is most of the time driven by insights, because that's the only time where the brand and the retailer are speaking the same language. That is not about market shares or, share of the market, share of the category. It's all about what is that people want, as simple as that. And how do you know that? You have to know through studies. Intuition is good to start with, but we do have analysis and insights that are always needed. And we have a very clear structure on how to do that. We're very clear how to talk to our customers, shoppers, consumers. We're very clear on what data can we bring on the table, what data are not relevant in our opinion. And one of the examples is currently one of our key projects from an online perspective is, from a category management perspective, is improving the shopper experience on the websites of our key customers, which is a conversation that is not commercial. It's not related to investments at all. It's a win-win for us and the customer. So what we do is we use several tools, lots of surveys for sure, interviews with shoppers. We also do eye tracking for sure. That is part of our conversation with the retailers. And what we discuss is, how do you make your website as friendly as possible for the final user? And what we do is, of course, we talk about our categories when we talk to the retailers, but at the same time, those improvements for our categories can be easily applied to other categories as well. So we establish that conversation with a retailer where they understand we're not talking on behalf of the brand Barilla, we're talking on behalf of the shoppers that buy on their website. And that creates trust between us and the customers. And of course, being myself, a commercial guy, for me, it's very, very important to tell to our customers at all points, we're with you, we help you, and it's not just about us, it's about me, you, and people buying our products in your store.
So maybe now we can talk about some insights that are personally interesting to us and that arouse our curiosity and make us think about them once in a while.
Well, I was watching a YouTube video from one of my favorite YouTubers called Vsauce, and he was saying that the way humans perceive time tends to be very wrong because of the way we're taught history in school, right? So we think chapter 1 starts and chapter 1 finishes and chapter 2 starts, right? Without realizing that chapter 1 and chapter 2 can overlap. So he was listing some of the key, misconceptions about time and historical facts that we know. And he was saying something extremely interesting, which is, for example, two facts. The first one is that Cleopatra was time-wise closer to the founding of Pizza Hut than to the building of the Pyramid of Giza. And at the same time, when you think about the guillotine in France, there's the last time someone was beheaded in France was the same year as Star Wars came out. And it's mind-blowing because people don't realize how, things happen at the same time. They don't happen just in a sequence that as we're taught in school.
I just recently read that goldfishes have surpassed humans in short-term memory. There was some Microsoft survey that said that average human attention span in year 2000 was like 13 seconds. But by 2013, it was only 8 seconds and it continues to decrease. So this basically means that there is a lot of different information competing for our focus in our brains, which obviously causes attention to become more scattered and less extensive. So for me as a researcher, it will be really interesting, fascinating to observe how the consequences of this development will impact the way that businesses and brands basically communicate with consumers. They will probably have to reshape or adjust their manner of communication to those changes.
Thank you, Mila. Thank you, Zlatko, for your time and for coming here to share your vast experience and expertise in this domain. And to our audiences today, I really hope you enjoyed this inspiring episode. If you have any additional questions or topic suggestions for us, do not hesitate to reach out via our website or our LinkedIn page. We hope we encourage you to unlock your brand's e-commerce potential.